the dark slice stories of life. Whisper shiver down the hall tonight. Phantoms aching for a chance to ignite.
Like this is Oops All Ghost, a place for people to share their paranormal encounters, whether big or small. I'm Rob here, hosting. Today we're going to do a little different. We don't have any guest here today. We're just going to go through some Reddit stories and hopefully get some bone-chilling articles here of encounters. I've done this before. I've read some really spooky ones, but hey. Alright. We found our first one, and it's called Knocking at Toller's Bedroom Door, but it wasn't her. On Paranormal Encounters, here we go. I have to get this off my chest, because I can't get it out of my mind. We moved into our house in July 2024, and I haven't had any weird encounters until about 2 months ago. Some background. I have a 2-year-old who was going through a period of regression for maybe 2 to 3 weeks, getting up in the middle of the night. She would get our attention by knocking on her door in a very even, measured, almost polite way. She also would knock in the same way when she got up in the morning. She has since stopped doing that. But it was common for her during the months of probably December through February 2024. About 2 months ago, one night, the knock-in awoke me. 2 a.m. I didn't check her monitor because I just assumed she was up. And because the monitor situated right next to her door. So, you can't see if she's at the door. Only if she's in her bed. Since we moved it, partially because of this event, I got out of bed, stubbed my toe pretty hard on the door jamb, and yelped. Opened the door, and the knocking stopped. Hold on, I feel like I skipped something. Yelped. I go to the door. I hear the knocking as I'm standing right in front of it. It sounds like it's at her at her door, like always. I open the door, and the knocking stops. She's not there. I assume she ran to hide, even though it's pitch black. And she's done that before. I said, Sticka. It's spelled S-T-H-G, like... Darling, where are you? Come on out, hon. Nothing. Her room is very small. Closet is locked. Stuff under her bed. So she can't hide under there, etc. She's not anywhere. I could easily see, although it was dark. Honey, where are you? I sit down on her bed. Honey, come on out. It's bedtime. I put my hand down on the bed next to me, but it doesn't land on her mattress. It lands on her blanketed back. She was up against the inside of the bed, totally covered in blankets. I did not see her at all. Even sitting right next to her, it's a taller bed, mind you, so very tiny. She barely stirs. She does not wake, but sighs a bit. Upon realizing how confusing this all is, the knocking starts again. It is close. Feels almost like it is at her door again, although her door is open now. We have another bedroom that has a door that meets her at a 45-degree angle that is shut. It sounds like it could be coming from there. I mean, logically, it must have been coming from there because there's no other place it could be coming from. I go to that door. I hear the knocking right at the door. I open the door. The knocking stops. Immediately. Nothing is there. WTF. I go back to our bedroom. My husband was asleep, but he had heard the knocking initially in his sleeping stupor, then fell back asleep. I said, "Darling, that wasn't our daughter knocking." He shoots up and is fully awake now, turns on all the lights and walks around the house and checks all the rooms, except our kids, obvious, as she is asleep, and checks all the locks. Nothing. Another similar but less significant occurrence had happened a couple days before that. I heard the knock-in, but then there was a short period of silence. Less than a minute. I had looked on the monitor and seen daughter in bed, so assumed she went back to bed, which was odd and of itself because she will usually just fall asleep at the door. Then I move her to her bed. Or she will just stop knocking because usually she is hungry or needs a diaper change. She's never gone back to bed on her own before. In retrospect, it wasn't normal. I do not believe in ghosts. I do not believe in spirits. I believe in here and now. We are also atheists. But I've been racking my brain and cannot come up with a logical explanation. We have a loose gutter, and the day after I went out to see if maybe the wind could have been making that noise. Although it was not windy at all that night. I couldn't get it to make any noise, let alone knocking that sound distinctly, like it was coming from inside the house. I wish I had waited a moment, the second door, to listen and take stock of the situation before opening the door. I guess it reverberated, echoed on the baby monitor. My spouse had heard it too. I am not even sure I want some sort of confirmation or anything from you all here. I just need to get this off my chest. My husband thought it was weird, but basically didn't give it a second thought once he realized there was no home invasion situation. He actually said he thought the knocking sounded a little off to how our daughter knocks. I don't know, maybe, but I thought it sounded just like her. WTF. Oh, wow. This was really well written and definitely spooky. What kind of phenomenon do you guys think it is? Do you think it was just her toddler going back to sleep? Or was it more? A Hatman experience. This might go into just like our guests beforehand. I need to know if my experience with the Hatman is similar to anyone. I, 33 female, have a best friend I grew up with since I was born. I spent the night at their most of my childhood. I feel like that's supposed to be home. Their home most of my childhood and teen years. It was almost every day, even for 3 months one time as a child. Growing up, I would eventually learn why my best friend, let's say M, has a younger sister named Y, who is also my best friend. Y slept with her mom, and I grew to understand she is afraid to sleep alone because she is scared to sleep in her room. I never thought much of it. One house they lived in, her room was full of antique porcelain dolls. I slept in that room, and I did find them a little creepy, but I didn't mind sleeping there. They eventually moved in a different house when I was a teenager. Was a point where Y told me once she believes a little ghost girl haunts her closet. I didn't think much of it, but I would pick out clothes for her out of that closet, but one day I felt very uncomfortable in it and ran out and shut it like she's always asked. I spent the night at their house, as I usually did most of the summer. One night, I spent the night in M's room. I got up to use the bathroom in the late hours like normal, something I've always done. In the same house, same bathroom, in the hall. Let me explain that hall. It's about a 15-foot long hall. The far left is the stair landing was M's room. Walking down in the middle of the bathroom and down the right of the hall is built-in laundry area that leads to the end of the hall of Y's room. Always empty and dark. I walk to the bathroom with a little light coming from the staircase and Y's room in the dark as always. So there is a part of the wall that is half light diagonally and half dark that leads to Y's room. I looked up and see the Hat Man on the wall, like a shadow, like a true shadow stuck on the wall. But he was very dark, like Vanta Black absorbing light. He didn't have eyes. He was just wearing a long trench coat with no ending and a wide brim hat. He was just a shadow. I stood there staring at him, frozen in a place, and it felt like forever. I almost felt like he wasn't there for me and that I should have never seen him. He then slid against the wall in a 2D-like fashion into the dark part that leads to Y's room, and I swear the more she slid back into her room, the darker the darkness was that would come from her room. I immediately turned on the hallway light and ran into the bathroom and prayed to God to protect me. I repeated the Lord's Prayer. I don't remember how many times it felt like hours. I eventually went back to M's room and tried to go back to sleep, but I couldn't, thinking how Y was right. There may be a ghost in this house. Couple months go by. I don't bring it up or anything. Eventually, their mom's friend, let's call her S, moves into Y's room since it's always empty and not in use, but had a bed and dresser and TV. Y and S told S to never leave her closet door open and to always close it. S agrees and does what she says. One day, S didn't close it and came home one day and said she saw a little girl in the closet, but she told this to the entire family, and it was now apparent. I know there's something going on in this house with this family, but especially the women of the family. Only me, Y's mom, Y and S saw the encounters, and none of the men did. One day, I finally tell M and Y and their mom my Hat Man experience, and they told me he follows them from house to house. Ooh, that they don't know why he does and if he's evil entity or not. I can see a sense of relief that I know their secret, but also they live in constant fear. I understand why finally, and I made sure to take her more seriously since then and stop being skeptical. I didn't bring it up again. And years go by. I'm in my 20s. Our family moved to the big city and started different lives together, but we ended up having a falling out because of our moms. Our families didn't talk for about 10 years, but me and M would sometimes reconnect on and off. One time, me and M hung out in the middle of those 10 years, and I asked him if he still gets paranormal activity. He said yes. Even after us all moving to completely different cities, hours away from hometown, he said that Y still sees them and tries to pretend they don't bother her, that they just got used to living with ghosts. I didn't bring it up again after that, but now that families rekindled our relationship again, I am dying to ask Y all about it. But this family is Roman Catholic and are very afraid of why this is happening to them, which I understand. I don't understand why the Hat Man would follow the family house to house their entire lives. I eventually learned that Y has recently developed sleep paralysis. So that is new, and a lot of people say you see the Hat Man from sleep paralysis. But I have never had sleep paralysis. I always know people say when you take Benadryl you see him, but that night I didn't take any Benadryl. I didn't take anything at all. I also didn't do drugs or anything. We were all straight edge kids. I really wish I could know why. I want to help them. Mind you, the family has been dealing with this before the internet. Huh. Well, that gave me a couple chills there reading about the Hat Man getting absorbed into the wall. Oh my goodness. What do you guys think? Is there a Hat Man creature that pops up frequently for people? Is that a normal paranormal activity for a Hat Man? We even have mentioned with our previous guest about a Hat Man there sharing his experience going a different way in Italy. So maybe it's the form of the time, or maybe it's a certain creature. Who knows? What are the chances my great aunt's house is haunted? Let's find out. Okay. I, 17 female, have always had some level of sensitivity to the paranormal. If you scroll through my old posts, you'll see what I mean. But right now, I'm staying the night at my great aunt's house for the first time ever to take care of her after surgery. And let's just say her house has some serious history. It was originally built in the 1800s, used to be an old hotel, and then was converted into a Civil War hospital at one point. She lived here for years, and now she's alone since my uncle passed away a few years ago. So did her dog, which makes the house feel even quieter. Despite all that, I don't feel super uneasy overall. At least not on the main floor. I actually feel relatively safe downstairs. But upstairs gives me a different kind of vibe. It's not outright malicious, but I definitely feel a shift in energy up there. Just off, if that makes sense. Also, her house is in between two churches. One feels calm and comforting, but the other gives me sketchy vibes. I can't explain. The weirdest thing though, there's this old photo of the original owners in one of the upstairs rooms, and every single time I see it, I feel deeply unsettled. It's like they're watching, or like some kind of energy clinging to it. It's not jump scare level creepy, but it sticks with me in a weird way. Anyway, I'm here overnight and curious what people think. Is this just old energy? Residual stuff? Or does it sound like something more active? Open to any thoughts. Maybe. It's hard to tell. You know, like sometimes you just get a weird vibe from just certain things, and it's hard to tell if it's haunted or not. What do you guys think? This one, posted 2 days ago, says aggressive encounter. Now it's only a paragraph, so it might not be the best story, but let's check it out anyways. I was in the restroom, getting a shower ready with my Yorkie beside me, when I read the word Nephilim out loud from a sentence I was reading. Suddenly, I felt hands wrap around my neck, choking me with full force. My dog let out a blood-curdling shriek, currently shaking violently, and my jaw is throbbing in pain. As I type this, I can hear what I assume are my mop and broom falling over the kitchen. I was never a believer until now. What? That title got me, okay? Aggressive encounter. I thought there was going to be more to that. I mean, like, to be fair, an experience of feeling something grab you by the neck, like, that'd be terrifying. Little green man. This creature that visited me as a kid. This was from 6 days ago. Hello. I've gone down a rabbit hole of spooky things recently and figured maybe it would be worth talking about my own odd experience. I thought I said old here. I don't really talk about it in my own life because it makes my skin crawl, nor do I really post on Reddit. So if I do something wrong here, please let me know. When I was younger, I had a lot of issues with sleep. I don't remember a whole lot of my childhood, but I know I wouldn't sleep for long periods of time. Frequently bothered my parents in the middle of the night, had recurring nightmare terrors, and would talk in my sleep. I freaked out my dad many, many times when I get up and wait for him to finish whatever he was doing to talk. A 6-year-old girl in a nightgown with long hair hanging over her face was a freaky thing to see me at 2 a.m. Yeah. Anyways, from as far back as I can remember, until I was about 8 years old, so roughly 3 or 4 years, I had the same dream every single night. My bed was right under a big window, and I liked to sleep with the curtains partially open so I could look at the moon. It was 1-story house, and my bedroom was at the front. Every single night, and I'm not exaggerating, I truly mean every single night, I would dream that I woke up to see a humanoid creature looking outside my window. It was extremely tall enough that I could see most of its body framed by my window. It had grayish yellow skin and wore no clothes. Its shoulders reached the very top of my window, and its torso was nearly the whole length of the window, but I could not see the tops of the legs towards the bottom. It had its hands pressed into the glass and its fingers splayed out. Then, the really freaky part, its neck reached above the window and then looped back down so its head was visible on the side of its body. It had no hair, massive gray-white eyes, 2 slits for a nose, and a giant grin on its face. And I mean giant. It stretched its skin out from cheeks and chin, and its teeth were long and jagged and thin, and they were dirty yellow color. It never did anything, didn't even blink, and just stood there staring at me until I'd wake up in a panic. I saw this creature every night for years. I never told my parents about it. Why? I tried shutting my curtains when I went to bed, but when the dream started, my curtains would be unexpectedly open, and then when I woke up, they'd be partially open, as if I didn't close them. Eventually, I told my grandma about the dream when I slept over at her house and didn't have the dream for the first time in years, and she gave me this tiny clay figurine and told me to sleep with it by my bedside. And I've never had a bad dream again. I did as she said, and unexpectedly, I never did see the creature again. I still had night terrors and recurred nightmares, but that specific creature never visited me again. Ooh. I'm 23 now, and I still sleep with the figurine at my bedside. I've never seen that thing again. I'm an insomniac and have experienced sleep paralysis a number of times in my adulthood. Frequently experienced night terrors and have been prescribed a number of sleep medications that I never ended up taking long term because of the side effects. At this point, I am very good at running on little to no sleep. I have experienced hallucinations during these times where I've seen horrible things and had dreams that have left me messed up for days. Still, I've never seen the creature again. The memory of those dreams is the clearest memory of childhood that I have. I can remember how it looked, exactly how it felt to lay in my bed and stare at it between the purple curtains, exactly how silent and still it was. I don't ever open my blinds at night. So this was posted 2 days ago. This is Reddit's Paranormal Encounters. Background. My wife and I are in our 30s and live alone. She's in corrections and I'm a military veteran and an electrician, so we aren't too easily shaken. At the time of these two happenings, I was not tired, medicated, or overly anxious. The first experience happened when my wife came home from Costco and pulled into the garage and closed the automatic garage door. I came upstairs from the basement and passed her by as she walked in with groceries. I slipped on my shoes on and headed out the garage to grab the rest of the bags as she headed to use the restroom upstairs. Quick! I was leaning into the back seat when I heard the door open and hear her say, "Oh, you didn't have to do that." I popped my head out of the car to respond, and she wasn't there. I thought it was odd how fast she went back inside. Without waiting for my response, I headed inside to respond to her, but she was still in the bathroom upstairs. I asked her about it, and she said that she did not come out to the garage, nor say anything of that nature. We both kind of got a little weirded out, but eventually she shook it off and forgot about it up until last night. Last night, she and I chopped up carrots and potatoes for dinner, knowing it would take a bit of carrots and potatoes to cook though. I decided to head downstairs to our home gym to install a new ceiling light fan. I'm most of the way through installing it and hear her shout down my name down the stairs twice. I figured dinner was ready, so I took a few more minutes to finish up and grab the trash upstairs. I see her sitting on the couch, playing on her phone with a cat in her lap. I asked if dinner was done, and she said no. I asked her why she was calling my name then, and she said she didn't. Again, I'm thinking, what the hell? I go through it in my head wondering if I imagined it. I decide I definitely did not. It was once again her voice, and once again it was something she would have said in a situation. Here. Could it be a mimic? Could it be another creature? Who knows? This was posted 8 days ago with 24 upvotes. Who knows how good the story is? Maybe we'll get a bone chill or two. Let's find out. This is a very true story about an old barn my dad was thinking about buying one time. The location was up in northeastern Montana. The barn had been part of an old ranch at one time, but the rest of the homestead had been destroyed or otherwise dismantled. So the barn was the only building left standing on a nice flat piece of ground, perfect for renovating for an indoor workspace, storage of vehicles, gear, etc. So I went up with my dad when we went to the walk through the place and took a look at the interior, and it was immaculate inside. The barn had 4 or 5 center sections about 10 feet apart down the middle of the barn from the floor to the roof. The place was quite sturdy. The owner of the land had cleaned up this barn and kept it nice inside for his personal use, and had put down a layer of gravel inside of the barn over the original dirt floor in order to keep dust to a minimum. Oh, that's nice. Dad had bought one of those wind-up cameras from the store where you could wind the wheel and snap like 15 photos or something, and had the photos developed at Walmart. So Dad took a bunch of photos of the interior and exterior of the barn so he could show Mom the building. Once he got them developed, he got the photos back from the Walmart about a week later, brought them home, and we looked through them as a family around the supper table that night in our kitchen. All the photos were normal. Oh, I lost my place. A week later, the kitchen, except for one. It was the interior taken from inside the front door, a few paces in. And in this particular photo, the barn was a complete mess. Nothing like it been when we were there. Hay everywhere, fallen from the hayloft, and no gravel covering the dirt floor. When we pulled this photo out of the stack, we were kind of confused and thought maybe we had gotten someone else's photos in our group of photos. But it was clear the same barn. The thing that stood out for the family about this photo of the interior of the barn was the first center section. There was a silhouette of a man with no head and footprints on the dirt floor leading in, but not out of the barn, stopping at that first section. Dad and I went back to the northeast Montana later that year in the fall to hunt grouse. So we went and spoke to the guy who owned that barn, showed him the photos, and then the one weird photo. When we showed him that photo, his face went pale white, and the look in his eyes was one I've never seen. He told us his grandpa had been murdered when he was a small kid, but his parents never told him what happened, and the murder was never solved. Needless to say, Dad never bought that barn, and the owner had it torn down the next year. One of the spookiest things I've ever been a part of my life. So they took photos of an open house and a barn, and only one of the photos was almost like a memory imprint of just like, torn hay everywhere. And to see a person in that photo when you were walking through, that is spooky stuff. Oh my. Wow. Cursed property. It's got 7 upvotes, 1 comment 4 days ago. This is oopsallghost, and we'll read Cursed Property. I think my dad's place is being haunted by a skinwalker. So this all begins about a few weeks ago, when I visited my father's house to help him work, which I do about every other week to see him since I live near my mom's side of town. On Friday around 5 p.m. I noticed a white cat standing there by a bush, just watching us, menacingly. Now, usually I would chalk this up to cats being the curious little furballs they are, stray or not, as my dad's neighborhood has always been infested with a white cat population. But this one stood out to me. He looked more frail than the rest of them. His fur was missing some parts, and his body barely functioned. Mangy in every sense of the word. He also had a full-length tail, something no cat should have in the neighborhood, as they all have inherited a genetic defect that gives them the bobtails. But of all it was his eyes, they had a soulless behind them. To them. Watching, but not for the reason you'd want to be watched by a cat. Flash forward around 10 p.m. I need to get myself an energy drink since I had forgotten to stock up in the next few days. I usually stay with him about a week when I come over, and so I headed out. But what I see is disturbing, to put it lightly. The cat was now disemboweled, sitting there by the streetlight, guts pulled out like clock workings and just skinned. I thought not to tell anybody, as my dad would just say something oddly Darwinistic, and my aunt would be in tears before they even saw it. I thought I was just paranoid at first, because foxes do like to eat the skunks and cats that roam around here sometimes. Looking back, it was a stupid justification. They wouldn't just leave the corpse there. I had to get to bed, and by the time I'm looking out the window the next day, that crime scene is gone. No trace of it, nada. When I go out there again to go shopping for my father, I see that cat, perfectly fine, but just standing alone next to the house. There was no other cats or food there, just yard. Keep in mind, I just saw this guy disemboweled a few hours ago, and so I'm weirded out. I chalked it up one last time by the time I leave back home, but after my cousins tell me that ever since I left, he's been hearing routine scraping and tapping on his walls at late at night, I feel like my suspicion is true. Did I accidentally curse my father's property? What do you guys think? Do you think they cursed their dad's property with a skinwalker? Ooh. Alright, this one is 4 days ago. 14 comments and 3 upvotes. Says door slamming and fairly visible figures. This might be a good one. Let's not get our hopes up too much though. Unfortunately, there is no pictures to back this, as I was only 12 to 13 when this happened. I'm 18 now. I would always stay up late, later than you expect, just watching content on my iPad and just catching up with some of my favorite people to watch, like Jelly, Sluggo Man, all the stuff you expect a 13-year-old to watch, really. I literally spend most of my nights watching stuff like this and playing games. I had a weird bed. It was like a bunk bed, but without the bottom bed, I guess. Regardless, under my bed was my desk and my PS4, in which I played games on. Most nights would usually just play out the same. Watch videos, then fall asleep. I was about 12-ish at night. I never really remember things all that well. I guess you could say this is one of those events that you can remember to the minute. I just started watching videos and was sat with my iPad on my chest laying down, somewhat getting tired, but it felt weird. It was an old house, in fact a renovated barn house, so most of the doors had little windows above them, and of course my bed being quite high, if I sat up I could see straight out the window out of the landing. It was if something was stood at a ladder of my bed to get up, so I took a look down as I had a gut feeling, but nothing was there, of course. I brushed it off to this point. I usually just watch scary stuff, as I had a strange reason to always just try and scare myself. I honestly don't know why. But I had one of those blinds where you could pull one string, it goes up, and pull another and it goes down. So it was old, it was hard to move, but it just shot up and straight back down. At this point, I'm shook and upright. Having a hard time reading this. I'm shook up and I run to my parents' room. They just say it was the wind to calm me down. I took the bait, of course. Being 13, knew none of the wiser. There was other cases of seeing figures at the end of the hallway, through my window. They could never did anything but walk about going in and out of the bathroom and down the stairs. You could very clearly see them, but you could never hear them. So of course, it wasn't exactly a person. From that night on, it kind of picked up. They added more in the comments. So there's more, and this seems more broken down. So it says, in this place, he would walk by as if the pub literally next to it, and we'd often go to get lunch there. where I would get my usual fish and chips. It's the best thing ever. And walking back from the pub, I would often look at my window and see a figure standing, looking down. It was so defined. I thought it was someone in our house, to the point you could make out every bodily feature, torso up. It was tall with some beady eyes. There was no life to them. It was almost a sorry look. Of course it scared the life out of me. Albeit once or twice. Moving on, I skipped between parts because I could sit and talk to you for hours about it. Oh, that was hard to read for some reason. I don't know. I encountered the lady of the bank. Who's the lady of the bank? And this one's a bit of a long one. Alright, 16 days ago, 14 upvotes and 13 comments. I have had many paranormal encounters over the years, and I find them fascinating and frightening sort of ways, if that makes any sense. This experience, however, was pure terror for me. The context I need to explain our local legend. On the outskirts of this tiny town is where I live. This is also where the back road, also known as the bank, is. This road is extremely windy and narrow, the type of narrow that you have to lay over as far as you can on the rare occasion another vehicle is oncoming. It is surrounded by thick forest on one side and steep bank that leads to the creek on the other side. Local legend says about 60 or so years ago, a woman was traveling alone on this road late one night. It is believed she fell asleep at the wheel and ended up going over the bank. Her car was found close to the creek, horribly mangled. Sadly, she was never found. Some say she went through the windshield into the water. Others say she stumbles out of her car into the water. Regardless, it is believed she met a watery grave. The creek in the area is said to be bottomless, and that's why she was never found. After this, there were many reports of others diving along the road after dark, and seeing a woman standing along the side of the road only to vanish when they would slow down. Others swore a woman would just appear in the car as they were driving solo down the dark road. There were so many tales of ghostly women. She became known as the Lady of the Bank. Jumping to a few months ago, I had attended a gathering at the building in this area. I was told there was a wreck on the main road, and the road was temporarily being blocked off. I was tired and just wanted to get home, though I felt horrible for those involved in the accident. I decided to take the bank instead, as it would take me past the accident and lead me out a couple miles from my house. Mind you, I have driven this road many times, mostly in daylight, a couple times after dark, but never alone. Of course, I was told stories of the Lady of the Bank, often growing up, but that honestly wasn't in my mind this night. I had other stressing matters taking up my thoughts as I drove. I had my music playing at a low volume as I carefully glide through the curves. The only related issue I did worry about was hitting a deer. My thoughts were harsh, interrupted by a loud ding, ding, ding. My heart jumped to my throat as my eyes darted over the inside of my car when I noticed the seatbelt icon lit up. I finally realized it was the alarm that someone was in the car wasn't wearing the seatbelt. I was bumfuzzled as I checked to make sure my seatbelt was securely wrapped around me and fastened in place. Just as the loud dinging started again, I once more glanced over to the passenger seat and nearly fainted. There was a figure in the passenger seat. All I really could make out in the split second I noticed was a long, dark, wet-looking hair mostly covered the person's face as it appeared to be looking forward out the windshield. I remember a scream leaving my throat as I slammed on the brakes. The car skid to a abrupt halt, causing me to lurch forward and then pushed back by my seatbelt. I can remember hearing my heartbeat in my ears, and I looked up and then slowly over to the once again empty passenger seat. The annoying as hell dinging stopped, and the seatbelt icon was no longer glowing on the dashboard. At that point, I stepped on the gas, deer no longer being the biggest concern at the moment. I made it home without further incident other than my anxiety attacks still lingering. I've since told the story to a few of my family members, friends, and locals. They all believe the lady at the bank tried to hitch a ride home with me that night. When my heart goes out for her, I won't be taking that road in the dark ever again. You imagine actually seeing your local legend? You know, there's ghost stories I think in every town, but when you actually experience them, that's a whole nother level. Well, that's the end of the stories. Thanks for sticking around, and now the end credits. Hello, it's Rob here from Oops All Ghosts, and I want to say thank you for listening all the way to the end. I really appreciate that you made it this far. I hope you enjoyed. I want to let you know if you have any tales to tell or spooky encounters you've experienced and would like to join the channel, hit me up in the messenger and we will message you back. I'm trying to get these out once a week, but it's kind of when I can, when I want to, It's a fun little side project for me. Once again, thank you. This is Oops All Ghost. Stay spooky.
Footsteps creep, pulling close the fear. Lights flicker cold and a breath in ear. Tangled in webs where the past appears. Tell me your truths under moon's dead glow.